Okay, it's recorded. You can both see the screen, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
So the first thing to start with is you have to define all the features you want to avoid. So like there will be roads or the river, the boundary, anything you have that's permanent and that you cannot cross or interfere with in any way, you have to define that. This will give you, I mean, the purpose of that is to give you a subdivision so that you have small areas, like small bits of areas to design. So you don't have to design the whole thing or think about the whole thing because it's too complex and it's hard to design like that, you know. So I looked at the files. I assume this is a road and this is a road, right?
Yes.
What are the blue lines? Are they some permanent features?
It's old drainage lines. We do not want to use them. So it's like information about that water now drainage by these lines and all
Okay.
main features.
And I saw on one of your designs you wanted to put roads where they are, or no?
On primary ridge.
Yeah, you want to put a road here?
Yes, yes.
I think we don't send the new roads file, and so it's a little bit difficult to say absolute exactly.
Okay. Okay, so we just work with what we have. So what I'll do is I'll just outline the boundary and follow these roads. I'll just follow where there's contour information.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so once you do that, you have to leave some space around it. Generally, it's a good idea, regardless if you're using any machines or not. I've never found anybody to not like having this space around because over time they may change their minds and they might want to include other features like along roads, they may want to put trees and something like that. So I always include some space, minimum 5 meters from any roads and minimum 12 meters or 10 meters from any fences. But if you have machines, then you have to leave space for those machines. So in this case, do you know if you'll be using any machinery in the future and how big they are going to be?
We will use machinery for our forest systems. So how big it will be, we do not know for now.
Okay, so a good rule of thumb is to leave at least 10 to 12 meters.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just use 12 and leave that on the inside.
Sorry, George, is it okay
Yeah.
I ask you now?
Sure, ask anything.
You ask about road, and I just want to ask you, what about these key lines that we do now? What part of design we should do it after roads and forests, after fences, after water, or what do you think?
You should do it after everything, so it comes at the very end. That's usually the best idea.
Okay, yeah.
The more you can reduce the area you have to design, the better. So if like you should put your water first and your forestry first and your roads and fences, everything permanent. You design this. So this will make it much easier. So for example, if you have, let's say, I don't know, another road here, then if you leave from that road 12 meters on either side, then now you have a much less, like you have less area to deal with. So it will be much easier to draw the lines.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, if you have ponds or trees, or you need to leave space around them, so this will create these small pockets of areas. It will be much faster. So once you do that, once you create all of this, once you design everything and you leave the space around all the features, then you can start drawing the lines. So let's assume we are there. Let's assume we have this, we've designed everything, and now it's time to draw the lines. The way you start is very simple, very rough, and you start with the easiest area first. The reason why that is because the faster you can start, and the way keyline, this type of layout works is the faster you start and the faster you start producing a layout, the easier it gets to produce layout for the next areas. Because the layout itself creates subdivision. So if I create layout for all of this area here, then I have to deal with just this area now. So it's just mentally, psychologically makes it much easier to think about the design and to draw it, because otherwise you're trying to think about too many things.
Maybe we can divide more with new road, so it will be
Yes.
better example. What do you think?
Yeah, the more you divide, the much easier it will be. That's the very first principle. Yeah, you just division, as much division as you can possibly do before even drawing the lines. Let's assume we have here just this field without any division. How are we going to do it? The way you approach it is you look at the landscape and you can see where there's like there are certain areas that have a particular characteristic. Like for example, this low area here has a different characteristic than everything around it. So this just initially may suggest that you have to deal with this area alone. But all of the surrounding one, like all of this, follows a very predictable pattern. So this entire area can be tackled with one line, whereas this one may require a different pattern. So you see what I mean? Like, that's just another form of subdivision. So you keep coming back to the same idea. So you always divide things into small, manageable chunks. So there's no way to know from the beginning. You just have to start designing very simply, very rough. So I just see this as a ridge. I'll just do very simple line, completely rough line, just to see. And I'll just check how it behaves up and down the slope to see where I have to make adjustments. You start very rough, and then you add you check how it behaves, and you start adding refinements to it. So I observed that in this entire area here, it's kind of all right. I have to do very little because it maintains the pattern. Whether I go upslope or downslope, it maintains the basic principle. But in this area here, it doesn't. So you can see how it flows and then reaches this point and starts trying to go uphill, So, this suggests that in this area, you need to do the most refinement. Also, it becomes quite steep here. So you need to flatten the line at some point, you know, something like this on this side, and then you need to add another point, something like this. Right, so this is the most complex area. So what I'll do is I'll start adding some detail just to tackle this area a little bit, make it less steep. Doesn't need to be so steep. The steepness is something you will check after. So you create a pattern, then you will go in and you check how steep each of these lines is at a certain increment. If they're too steep, usually above 10 degrees for me is too steep. But it depends on the landscape. If you have a bumpy landscape, like you have bumps and holes and rocks protruding through the ground, then you need to go as you need to be less steep because even though you may be running on a 10-degree slope, a bump can or a hole can really destabilize any machines. Also, steepness of the slope itself. The steeper the slope is, the less flexibility you have to adjust the line. You need to be much more careful. Whereas the more flatter it is, the more flexibility you have. Like you can make it more complex. You can be more steep, or you can be less complex and just be more rough with the line. So I'm just observing what's going on with the lines here on the top and in general as I move. There's a point here that is not ideal. Other than that, it behaves fine. It may have to be slightly more steep. Just for this area here. So I'm not even thinking about this area right now on the bottom side. I'm just thinking about everything above the ridge on the other side of the ridge. This seems fine. So I'll start thinking about this area here now. You see how it behaves. So you see how at some point it becomes no longer like no longer applicable somewhere around here or even somewhere up here. So it's just a balancing act all the time. You just align, you test it, you make adjustments, you make another, you reach a point of best scenario where there's as least compromise as possible and as much, you know, as much correctness as possible. And you also try to be simple, not overcomplicate too much.
So it should be only one line.
If you can,
Okay.
if you can, but you can go 2 lines. Maximum I ever do 3 lines, and this is for some really complicated things. It's better to have less because it's just easier to implement, much easier to work with every year, because you have to work with this, you know, a few years, I guess, at least. And so if you have to do really complex geometry every time, it's just going to be irritating. Also, try to do less of these turns as possible. It's much nicer to drive just on straight lines, not have to turn. Okay, so I would say somewhere at this point the line is no longer valid. So we need another pattern. So this pattern, something like this. So let's say this seems to work fine. So once you do the offsets, you take the headland boundary and you trim everything. Now it's about figuring out. I mean, the second principle is you should try to strive for unity and seamlessness. So as much as possible, one pattern to try to flow into another, so that there is less struggle to implement, or when you're driving to move from one pattern to another. So this can be. So for example, in this corner up here, I'm checking if the two lines can be made to be parallel, so that there's just less, you know, less difference. Just move this one.
Georgia, is it difficult to explain a little bit how you look on the landscape and try to find it? It's easy to look, but yeah.
So I look at the line, and I do this kind of offset where I can move up and down dynamically, and I'm looking at how it relates to the contours. So if you look at this line I'm moving now, I'm just like, for example, I don't like what it does at, let's find a point. Or yeah, like for example, what it does here, where it flows from this point and goes down, reaches this point, and tries to move water uphill. See what I'm saying? This will create some kind of pooling of water at this point here. Same thing here. I mean, this also depends on the on what you're going to use the pattern for. If it's for planting trees and not for plowing, then that's not such of a problem. So yeah, it depends on what you're going to use it for. But generally, I'm trying to avoid it as much as possible. It's not always possible, but so when it reaches this point and it creates this little insignificant turn, then it's no longer, this is not necessary. This should be something like this, straight, or just, yeah, completely. Because these small turns are really, really annoying. I don't know, this is a 50-meter distance here. So imagine like this is a 20 meters, so you drive 20 meters and then you have to turn again. It's not so, yeah, it's not so significant. So you can make this, like, obviously they will differ, they will be different here, but you can make these little adjustments in the pattern itself after you've done it, and yeah, they will not be very visible. They'll make a nice difference. So this, yeah, another area here is this one, how the pattern flows down, reaches the valley, and then tries to, and then concentrates water there. So obviously you have to change. Generally, if you can avoid these small narrow valleys, it's usually a very nice thing, because they always create these problems. Look how much time we spend just trying to solve the problem with this valley. I'll just try something to offset the pattern up to this point, and then offset upslope. It has to change here. Yeah. Maybe this is one scenario. And between the two patterns, you leave the same headland distance that you left everywhere else. The same machinery is concerned with. And you delete everything between. So I'm just looking again to see how much compromise there is, like in areas like this here. Seems to be fine up until this point. So from here, up until here, there's kind of a compromise. If you can live with that, that's fine. If not, you have to change the pattern. Generally, I'm looking for no more than a compromise that is this big. So you will always have it. You just have to figure out if you can live with it, or if it's too much. And if it's too much, you change it. Another thing is you have to check the slopes. I don't have the contours for. I mean the contour levels. I imported them, but they didn't have any elevation data, so I couldn't create a digital surface to check the slopes. But generally, what I'll do is, let me find a design. This is one design. So this design has the surface data, and I've prepared some slope maps for it. So I'll just change the keyline for this. The color. You can see. Yeah, so you see the lines. The steeper the slope is, the increment of analysis I'll do on each and every line. So I'll go and check. let me. I'm not sure why. Sorry, I know why. So let's say we want to check on this line. And so on. You can do this manually or automatically for all lines on a set interval. And I'll, as I said, I'll do this on every line. And I'm looking to stay within maximum 8 to like 10 degrees maximum. Like that's steep.
Degrees or percent?
Degrees. This software can only measure in percent. Whatever. It's whatever works. Whatever you understand most. I usually measure in degrees.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this one is. Another thing is to measure the angles here. So if you look at the bottom here, the bottom right, the acute angle is 72 degrees. This is a little bit steep. This is 82.
George, 30.
Sorry?
You said the angle 30. What?
For the here for the turns?
Yeah.
Maximum, like the very maximum, is about 60 degrees. So 70, okay. 70 is a little bit steep. This is one is 72.9. This is 132. So if it's a little bit steep, you have to chamfer it. One way to do this automatically is using a chamfering tool. Sorry. Like you specify how you want to chamfer by a certain method. You can use distance, angle, let's say, whatever, just for example's sake. These kind of turns are very small and insignificant. But as the machine tries, it will smooth the turn. Similarly, it's not going to be, in reality, going to look like this. It's going to be smooth. So it will be something like this. That's how. That's the turn they're going to make. So. But still, it's good practice to draw it, if it's possible, the way it's going to be. So I often use chamfering just to trim off these sharp angles. Anything else you can think of?
And we try small part, because I understand that it's much better.
Which one is the small?
Andrey, what do you think?
This one or this
one? Я не понял, про что вопрос.
Чтобы мы сделали не на большой части, а на маленькой просто попробовать. Чтобы быстро это было, более легко глазу.
Ты хочешь, чтобы он еще раз сделал, что ли?
Ну да.
Не знаю, что тут еще можно. Дальше это все просто. Остались только долины. Ну, кроме вот этой террасы, которая между вверху. Не знаю.
Может, все-таки попробовать кусочек маленький вот до террасы вверху. Просто вот как делается паттерн быстро.
So, Ольга как предлагает.
Suggest. George, is it okay to try one small part so we can
Sure.
just look how it easier, a small part, and easier to find this pattern maybe.
Sure. Which one do you want to try? This one or this one?
I think another.
This one?
No.
This one?
Yeah.
Great. Same process. You start with subdividing the land. You put in all your design elements. And then you leave space around them. Just work with these contours.
Maybe not the whole, maybe half, because we thinking about lake in the middle, so it would be boundary also.
So do you want the lower part?
Yeah, I think just a very small part, so we can try small.
Okay. So just again, you leave space. You start very rough. Look at the general landscape. Then you check. You check how it behaves. You can see on the right side here on the upper part, the line is behaving properly. You see how it's flowing. It's a mild slope. It's not too steep. It's not too flat. It generally behaves well. And similarly, on the bottom slope, it behaves well. Not too steep, not too flat. There are no anomalies going on. Water doesn't try to go uphill. So, this is a good pattern.
Ну да, это же совсем простые формулы. Тут быстро.
Good to see professional work.
Oh, I deleted something actually. And then you do the same thing. You go and check the slope, check the angles. That's one thing about offsetting is that if the angle if the angle remains the same. So if this line has one angle, all of the other ones will have the same. So this one has 89.8, which is fine. So all of them will have 89.8. The only case where that's not true is when this kind of thing occurs. So you have one angle here, and downslope you have this kind of change happening. So this was 73 almost, and this one would be 82. But all of the other ones below will have 82 also. Or unless another change happens, like here. These ones are all 92.
Ну что, Оля, еще у нас есть вопросы? So, Giorgio, I have one question. In the first part of our pattern, left corner.
Left corner.
Left bottom.
Here?
Yes. This ridge, which we try to accommodate with our pattern, there are slope in the left bottom. So does we need to try to move water to the ridge? And I think now we have opposite direction of water from the ridge down to south.
So you want to move it this way to the south, right?
Yes.
Okay.
To the ridge.
Yeah. Okay. So I just turn off this layer. Do a different one. So you want to go to this
only this corner, not the whole pattern. Only this small corner.
So from here this way, right?
Yes. Okay.
Does this include the top part here, or just the bottom?
Just bottom to the ridge line. Okay. From
okay. So
valley. Do you mean valley?
No. I mean the primary ridge, this small primary ridge, and from this its central line to the south.
Yeah. You want something like this, right?
Yes.
Let's check. Yeah. And we will try to tie in. again, like last time, you will have some areas of compromise, like here. Right. That seems to be the only one. So if you can live with that, I mean, also the ones from before where we had. Certainly, if you spend some time, you can really reduce these more and make them much better. But these are the only ones I can see compromises.
So it's yes, more simple pattern. Ну что, Оль, есть у нас вопросы еще, да?
Такое ощущение, что мы наоборот сделали, что вода теперь течет в долину, или я уже совсем ничего не понимаю.
Что я на хребет течет, все правильно. Okay. Ты сейчас про тот маленький уголок говоришь или про какой-то другой?
Да.
Но это же хребет наш основной, где у нас дорога проходит, помнишь, нижний. И, соответственно, мы на него теперь воду пускаем, этот хребет. А до этого у нас, получается, там был как бы элемент, когда вода текла вниз.
George, sorry, can you save these lines for us?
Yeah, I'll send them now.
Yeah, certainly we will do it in small parts because we have some roads and other things, but good to have example.
Yeah, I saved it. I'll send this. Yeah, do you want to know anything else you can think of?
I think it's very good information, and we can use and try to simplify our pattern.
Yeah. Don't worry about the many variations. Just if you zoom out and squint your eyes a little, you see just general patterns. I mean, those are the important things to get. And you always get some compromises, but you have to just estimate how much they are relative to the bigger picture and if you can live with them or not. And if not, then you try to make some changes.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you, George. I hope we will try better and this big project, another one that we have. So a lot of work, and we hope that you will see on it after.
So you seem to have like a bigger one?
Yeah.
Yeah, this one. Yeah, it's big. Okay, well, if you need help, we just write us. Happy to help.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I'll send you the
Thank you very much.
Thank you, George. Thank you.
My pleasure. Have a nice day.
Have a nice day.